All right, there's some good news that's worth celebrating. We just learned that Border Patrol released, get this, zero illegal aliens into the United States last month. Now, that's big news given the fact that the Biden regime released 62,000 the previous year. So there's a lot to celebrate. I guess, all it took was a new administration and maybe some power and, you know, consistency in making campaign promises and carrying it through. We're very excited about this because, folks, let's be honest, this was the biggest issue that President Trump ran on, and it's amazing to see him carrying out that commitment. Joining us to discuss everything related to DHS, Tricia McLaughlin joins us now. She is the Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs over at DHS, and we are honored to have her on the program today. I want to thank you for joining me. This is exciting news. We just learned, obviously, yesterday that Border Patrol released zero illegal aliens into the United States for the month of May. So I guess it was possible all along. You just needed some willpower and you didn't need any new legislation to do just that. Before we dive into that topic, though, there was news that broke earlier this week, and I wanted to ask you about it. Obviously, Secretary Kristi Noem was sent to the hospital. I heard it was related to a food allergy. So, how is the secretary doing right now?
Well, Brianna, thank you for having me and thank you for asking about Secretary Noem. She is such a badass. She's doing very well, recovering well. Took a bit of time to rest, but she's back on the road tonight. She's headed to Michigan to discuss border security at our northern border. So she's back at it.
Yeah. And that's actually one of the most important things right now. I don't think most Americans realize it, but when it comes to known terrorists that came into our country, I think it was the fiscal year of 2023, we actually had the majority of those terrorists come in from our northern border. And I think most people think it's the southern border. So that's really important that she's focused on that. So that's good to hear. I want to take it back, though, and congratulate DHS for the move that happened last month, just given the fact that there were no illegal aliens admitted into the country. That's a big one. How did you guys do it? Because I heard from the previous administration that they needed more legislation to be pushed through Congress in order to do this.
You're so right. How many times did we hear from Secretary Mayorkas and President Biden that we had to have new legislation in order to shut the border down? Clearly, we didn't. We just needed the will of a president, a strong president who delivered and really sent the message to to abroad. Our border is closed to criminal illegal aliens. You can come in the right way or don't come in at all. But what does this mean for the American people? Not only is it that not a single illegal immigrant entered our country, but it also means for our Border Patrol agents that they're not wasting their time and resources processing people into the border. They're actually able to get out into the field and really stop these bad guys, stop the drug traffickers, stop the drug mules, stop the human traffickers, and make sure that we're keeping American communities safe. I mean, think about fentanyl. 54% of fentanyl crossing is down on our border. How many lives that's saving already, Brianna, is just amazing.
Yeah, no, it is really amazing. And I love the fact that this is all taking place right now because, again, this was one of the main commitments that President Trump ran on when he was campaigning. I guess I also have a quick question for you on that front, too, because we talk about violent criminals who were allowed into our country. Unfortunately, DHS, prior to Secretary, obviously, Noem and yourself, allowed individuals who, hundreds of them, who had ties to ISIS into our country. And I think a lot of Americans are very afraid that these are sleeper cells that could be activated at any point. What is DHS doing to make sure that they go after these individuals, even ones who were the gotaways, who were able to get into our country going undetected?
Yeah, this is something that definitely keeps me up at night, but our Homeland Security investigations team is all over this. But I think that the other piece beyond just Biden's broken border that allowed, like you said, terrorists and criminal illegal aliens into our country, but also it's the broken parole programs that they created. Take CHNV, Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela. That was a parole program that really was just a political scheme to allow these illegal aliens into our country without the visual optics of flooding our border. So we have canceled that. That's about 500,000 people, really illegal immigrants who are let into this country. It's things, actions like that, decisive action, canceling temporary protected status for hundreds of thousands of aliens and making sure that they have the proper time to get out of this country. But if they don't leave now, we will find them and we'll arrest them.
Yeah, and that's important. That message needs to be heard because the reality of it is you guys are doing an incredible job at going after the worst of the worst. And although the mainstream media continues to lie to the public about who's being targeted in all of this, it's important to drive home that point that the Biden administration allowed these individuals into our country, and we need them out as fast as possible. But there was something else that the Biden administration did that was absolutely egregious during their time occupying the White House, and it was the thousands of children, migrant children, who were released into this country were given off to individuals who weren't properly vetted. I've obviously, as my audience is well aware, have broken exclusive stories on all of this and detailed what was actually taking place. And you guys now, unfortunately, have the really tough project in going out there and finding that over 320,000 children that right now it's hard to track. A lot of the information that was given on these sponsors was intentionally wrong. And unfortunately, the previous administration didn't do enough to vet it. What's the status on those 320,000 missing children? And how is the tracking on all of this going on right now? Is it extremely difficult given the fact that you guys got wrongful information from the very beginning?
And thank you for your work on this. I think that this is such an untold story of the Biden administration, really the humanitarian crisis, the human trafficking crisis, the child trafficking crisis that they created. So far, we have been able to reunite with HHS and Secretary Kennedy. We've been able to reunite about 7,500 unaccompanied children with a safe guardian, parent, or relative. We got to get those numbers cranked up because this is a major priority for this administration to make sure that these migrant children who have been so oftentimes exploited as they came over this border, that they are in safe hands.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. Is DHS designating a certain task force? Because that's a lot of children, obviously. 320,000 is a lot of children. Thousand, sorry if I didn't say that properly. But is DHS designating a special task force to go out there and locate those children?
Yes, so Secretary Kennedy, he's the head of that, but we are looking at different options to make sure that we can really make that a priority and make sure that this doesn't happen again, Brianna.
Yeah, yeah, that's really important. I wanted to also get to the fact that Democrats are using your agents to not only just for a PR scheme, but they're also trying to fundraise off of it and trying to raise their ranks within the party. What they're doing is they are trying to make ICE agents, obviously their jobs significantly more difficult than they already are. There's Maxine Waters trying to visit a facility and be very dramatic about it, and obviously there's been a couple of scruffles as well with other Democrats. I did see that DHS is now requiring these lawmakers to request access in advance, just rather than just showing up and being there. What's the status of that? And how do you guys, because obviously more Democrats are seeing this as a great way to put their name out there in the mainstream media and to become a big player in the Democratic Party. How are you guys going to be pushing back against this?
Oh, you're absolutely right. We've seen an epidemic of Democrats who want to climb the political ladder, and they want to do so off the backs of our ICE enforcement officers. We actually just released today that assaults against our ICE enforcement officers are up 500%. We saw just a couple of days ago with the New York comptroller who's running, I guess, for mayor of New York City. He wanted his 15 minutes of fame. And so he went and assaulted an ICE enforcement officer. And then he also obstructed an enforcement as well. And then, of course, we saw what happened in Delaney Hall in Newark, New Jersey, where the mayor there and a number of members of Congress went and stormed a secure detention facility. They could have just asked for a tour and we would have happily helped them with that. But yeah, we have seen this time and time again. And as we enter the summer, and it seems like these ICE riots might be turned up, especially by these politicians who like to vilify them, demonize our ICE enforcement officers. They see what has happened with even Senator Padilla, who crashed Secretary Noem's press conference and really was acting so aggressively toward her. We're seeing what's happening and we realize we need to put the safety and security of our law enforcement in these facilities first. And that means that we need to have tighter, proper protocols and channels to make sure that Congress can still do oversight, but they have to do so in a timely manner and so that we can make sure our law enforcement, our staff at the facilities, but also the detainees are safe too.
Yeah, and that's really important here because Democrats are now pretending like they care about these conditions, but the reality of it is when American citizens were being held, let's just say the DC gulags in Washington D.C., they didn't go to the prison, to the jails to check on Americans, and I think that's telling in itself where they stand. But it's also telling that California Democrats are doing their very best to target your officers, your agents. They're now proposing legislation to ban those officers from being able to block out their faces. Now, we obviously know that these far left groups are doxing these agents and they are targeting them, obviously, with death threats and other means as well. But it's interesting because Democrats have no problem proposing legislation that targets these law enforcement officers. But when it comes to these violent protesters, these rioters, I would say, or actual criminals, they have no problem with them wearing their face masks and covering their faces to disclose who they actually are. How do you feel when you see things like this, when you see California Democrats are doing their very best to go after law enforcement officers?
Well, first of all, how rich is it that Democrats are going to be lecturing us about wearing masks? Is just an absolute joke. But broader than that, it just shows us that they don't know what the heck they're talking about. If you've been on an ICE enforcement operation, which I've been on quite a few, these officers, some of who are undercover, Homeland Security investigations, and some of these enforcement officers, they're undercover because they deal with criminal illegal cartels, highly sophisticated gangs like Tren de Aragua, MS-13, who go forth and target our ICE enforcement officers. As I mentioned, they have a 500% increase in assaults against them, but they're also targeting these enforcement officers' family members. But getting back to the actual operations themselves, our ICE enforcement officers clearly identify who they are. They're wearing vests that identify that they're with Homeland Security or with ICE, and they present that verbally. To act like they're completely covering up who they are is just completely false.
Yeah, yeah, but it goes to their narrative. They're trying their very best to control the narrative as much as possible and pretend like these are law-abiding citizens that are just, or not citizens, but immigrants is how they always
Yeah.
refer to it. And it's just not the case. The reality of it is, and we highlight it all the time on my X page, these are violent rapists in most cases, child abusers, murderers who are wanted in other countries for the egregious crimes they've committed, and they have no problem with them just being forced into our communities. And so it's just disgusting to see. But you guys are doing a great job over at DHS going after them, and especially you debunking the mainstream media narrative. I think that's really important. So we're very thankful for that. We look forward to having you back on the program, of course, with all your updates. But you are doing an incredible job. So thank you for all that you're doing. I love doing what I do because I get to stay independent. I don't have any corporations to adhere to or have to go with a certain narrative. It's because of you guys at all at home. You guys are the ones who keep me up and running, keep me independent. And if you want to keep it that way, you got to head on over right now to theindependentnewsroom.com because we survive on donations. I don't, bug you with a ton of advertisers. It's strictly just you all at home directly funding this show and my work as an independent journalist. So when you head over to independentnewsroom.com, take a look around. We've got that donations tab up there for you. You could donate whatever amount of money you like to donate, and you can make it a monthly or a one-time donation. You just have to make sure you hit that tab up there. Again, folks, it's independentnewsroom.com. It's done through DonorBox, so it is safe and secure. Again, folks, independentnewsroom.com is where you're going to want to go to make that donation. You guys are the only reason why we're able to keep this show independent. So again, independentnewsroom.com. We greatly appreciate it when you support us.